Hello everyone, welcome back and Chiranjeevi here. Welcome to the episode 8 of Rust series in which we are going to discuss about functions in Rust. So let's get started. Before writing code and getting into the functionality everything, let's just answer this question, very important question, which is why functions. So the term which needs to come into your mind when you hear about functions is reusability. So reusability is why we need functions actually in any programming language. So what are we reusing here? So what are we reusing here? We are reusing some functionality. So we are reusing some functionality. Whatever a function contains is a functionality. So a functionality is something that is very generic and that can be used anywhere. So let me give you an example for this functionality, function and reusability in a real world context. So let's say uh, when a person gets a heart attack, when he gets a cardiac arrest, the first thing that needs to be done by anyone surrounding him is a CPR. So a CPR can save a person. So here CPR is a function. It's the name of a function. Whatever we do inside this CPR, like what we do is like we keep hands on chest near heart. Next, what we do is press and release continuously and send air through mouth. So this is the basic things that we do in CPR. So whatever these steps are, this is what we call as a functionality. Which function is providing these functionalities? That is CPR. So this is a function. If you see carefully, this CPR can be done to any person who is suffering with cardiac arrest. So this is not something specified to one single person. This is not something specified to one single person who can do it also. CPR can be performed by anyone. So basically it is very generic. So whatever it is called is a function, and whatever things that is being provided by that function is called the functionality. So this is a very real world scenario where you can relate functions and functionality with. Now let's see this same thing in code where we are doing that. If you see this previous example that we discussed in user input related video, so here we are using a function called readLine. Okay, so this readLine is a function which takes some variable address and puts the user input inside that address. I mean inside that variable which is present in that address. You can use this particular readline function anywhere, any file in Rust. And if you see this println function, this is println function is being used everywhere, anywhere we want. So this is being reused. The functionality which println function provides is that it prints something to the console. So the functionality that readline function provides is that it takes some input, which is a variable address, and it sets the user input into that variable. So that is the functionality provided by readline function. Now let's see what are the different things that are involved in a function lifecycle. So function lifecycle. So what are the different stages involved in a function lifecycle? The first one is obviously declaration. Function declaration. So what does function declaration mean is that we are declaring that there is a function with this name, and that is what function declaration mean. And next is going to be, there needs to be something called function body. So this is nothing but the functionality of that function. Whatever that function does should be given inside the function body. So this is a second important thing. And the third important thing is called function call. So let's say we have a function available. We have println function available. But if you are not calling it, it won't perform anything that is inside the function body. So the third most important thing is called function call. We need to call the function even if it's available. It won't perform anything on its own. If it will perform something only when we call it. So these are the three important things that are present in a function lifecycle. Now let's write some code and see how we can declare a function, give functionality to it. I mean, write a function body and call that function. So for that, let's create a new project. The command for it is cargo new and the project name. Let's give it functions. I'm inside this projects folder, so I'm creating here. I created the folder. So now I have to go inside these functions. Now let's open this default file created by it, which is main.rs. So we have normal main function, everything. So now I want to declare another function. So how do I do that? If you see carefully, here main function is also being declared. How is it being declared? It's giving a keywords called fn, which means function. So while declaring a function, before its name, we have to give a keyword called fn, which means function. So fn. So after fn, see what it's there. It's the name of the function. So name of our function is cpr. So let's say we are doing cpr. So no, we are not doing anything related to AI. ChatGPT is not capable of doing CPR yet. So let's see this here. Here we are having something called parentheses, set of parentheses. We will see what it's for later, but let's keep them right now. And we have to open this curly braces and close that curly brace. So this is a basic structure of a function. We have the name of we have the fn keyword and we have the name of the function and a set of parentheses and open curly brace and closed curly brace. So this is a basic structure. This is what we call definition of a function. We are defining what the function looks like. So this is the name of the function, and we will give something called parameters inside these parentheses, and that is also that also comes under definition of a function. So for now, let's say uh, we are writing something like println and pressed 10 times and with 8 intensity. So let's say intensity is how hard you are pressing on the chest, and it's on the scale of 1 to 10. So we are pressing right now with 8 intensity. So this is what we are doing inside this cpr function. Now we have the function definition, first part of the function lifecycle, and we have the function body, second part of the function lifecycle. This is what we call as body. This is the functionality. So now we have to call it. Where do we call it? We call it inside this main function. So basically, we if you see, we never called main function, but still everything inside this main function will execute. That is because main function is an exception. The program execution starts within inside the main function. So we don't call main function only, but any other function which we create should be called by ourselves somewhere in the code. So in main function after hello world, let's say let's call this cpr. Let's do this before hello world, because a person who got cpr will say hello world after he or she wakes up. So let's call this cpr function like this. We have to call a function using the parenthesis itself. If you see println also, we are doing the same thing. Now let's save this and run this. How do we run this? Using cargo space run. So according to what I have written, it should print this press 10 times first and with 8 intensity second and hello world later. I forgot to keep semicolons. Save and let's run this. I forgot another semicolon here. Now let's run this again. Oh my god, too many errors. Okay, let's run this again. So as you can see, it printed press 10 times first with 8 intensity again and hello world later. This is fine. We have a CPR function, it's printing this and uh, it's printing this however we want. Now let's say we don't want to press 10 times, just 10 times every time and with 8 intensity every time. If the person didn't wake up with 8 intensity, we have to increase the intensity next time with 9 and press it again, do the cycle again. So if the person didn't wake up with 9 intensity also, we have to increase the intensity to 10. So we said we can reuse the functions. If we call CPR here, it will do this. If we call CPR somewhere else, it will do the same thing which is here. But we may need with different number of pressings and with different intensities. So how we can do that? So we need to make it generic. Right now it's printing whatever we want anywhere we want in the file, but we need to have the genericity. So we need to be able to change the number of pressings in to different number, and we need to be able to change the intensity with a different number. So how we can do that? While calling this function only, we have to specify how many times we are pressing and how many with how much intensity. So for that, let's say we are changing the number to 20 and to the intensity 9. If we say that we do this, the CPR function doesn't know that we are sending some number and that need to be used. So how CPR knows that we are sending numbers is by providing here. Uh, let's say we are calling number of presses. This 20 will be passed to this particular number of presses, and the number 9 will be passed to intensity. So if we do this, we can replace this with this placeholder and this also with a placeholder, and we can send intensity here, and we can send number of presses here. If you save this and run this, I am pretty sure that it throws an error. Why? That is because we didn't provide any name of these things. This we call these as parameters. We didn't pass any type to these parameters. How does CPR know which type is coming? We can pass a string here, we can pass a floating point here, we can pass anything here. But how does CPR know? Okay, this thing is of this type. We will get everything every time this type only. So how does it know? We have to specify that type here. We are sending both as numbers, so we can specify I32 for both as types. How do we give types? By using column. So now the CPR function knows that every time the number of presses and intensity comes as I32 data type inputs. So now if we run this, it printed press 20 times with 9 intensity. So now we made this generic also. If you let's do this again after this hello world. CPR with 30 presses and 10 intensity. If we save this and run this, as you can see, it printed 20 times 9 intensity. Wait a minute. Hello world 30. Why did it print 2 times? Let's run this again. Yeah, that is some, maybe some kind of glitch. It actually printed with 9 intensity 2 times. I don't know why. Yeah, so this is the expected output. Press 20 times with 9 intensity hello world, and after that we are passing 30 10 again. Press 30 times with 10 intensity. This is what I meant regarding reusability and genericity. Let's just quickly talk about a very simple yet very fundamental thing, which is statement versus expression. So a lot of people get confused between both these names. A lot of people think both these are same, but there is a very small difference between both of these. So a statement doesn't generate or return a value. So let's take an example. If we want to create a variable, how do we do that? Let some name, let's consider as var underscore 1 is the name of that variable, and type is i32, and we are giving it some number 10. Let's say this is a line, this is a statement. Why? If you see, if we try to print this entire thing, if we try to print this, if we put some println and we give entire thing inside, it won't print anything. An expression is exactly opposite to this. It generates or returns a value. So an example can be 10 plus 10, or 20 divided by 2. If you put println before this, it will print something. It will print 20 here, it will print 10 here. So basically a statement is something that doesn't generate any value. If we use println before that, it won't generate any value, but an expression is something that generates a value. So why do we need this statement and expression topic in this particular functions video? uh, that is because let's try to print whatever that is coming, whatever that is generating by this particular line. Let's put some println before this, and in the placeholder we are passing this function. So basically we are trying to print whatever that is being generated by this particular function. If we save this and run this, it's throwing okay, it's throwing error because of this thing. Let's run this again. It's throwing this error. That is because this CPR function is not returning anything. This is a statement here. CPR call is a statement here because it is not returning anything. So how do we return something, a value, a particular value from a function, so that we can know what happened inside that function? Let's say we want to know if the patient became alive or the patient is dead after the CPR. So how do we do that? We do that, let's say if the function CPR returns true, which means that the patient is okay and he's good now. If the function returns false, it means that the patient is dead. So how do we do that? We do that using a keyword called return, and we want this to be written after everything is done in the function. So that's why we are putting this return after everything. So return, what do we want to return? Let's say I don't want anyone to die right now, so let's put true every time. Okay, so true. But if we try to run this now, it will throw an error because we are not specifying that CPR will return any value in the function definition. So I told that the first line is the function definition. In the function definition, we are saying that its name is CPR and it's taking two parameters of type i32, and names are these, and we are not specifying anything about return type. If there is no return type, by default it's called a void type, void void type. Void type is nothing but it's not returning anything. So if we are returning anything, we have to specify which type it is returning. So we are returning a boolean type, true or false considered as boolean. So we have to specify that it is returning boolean type. So for that we have to give an arrow after these parameters, parenthesis, and we have to specify the type. In our case it's bool. So now we are specifying that it's returning bool, and we are returning true every time right now. So now if we try to run this, see, after this it printed true. Okay, so this is what a return type is. Now this CPR call, this became an expression. So that's the thing, that's why I showed what a statement and what a expression is, and this is how we return values. The return value doesn't need to be given at the end of the function, it can be given at the starting also, but since I want to return after everything is done, then that's why I have given true, return true here. Let's also make this return value dynamic. The patient doesn't always become alive, there are chances that the patient dies. So let's analyze the data that is given into this CPR function and decide if the patient dies or not. So I am not a doctor and I don't know when the patient dies or not, but let's assume if the number of presses is less than 20 or the intensity is less than 7, the patient dies for sure. I don't know if this is real or not, but let's assume that condition just for the example sake. So let's analyze that. Let's see if number of presses is less than 20. If this is less than 20, or or this is how we specify or intensity is less than 7. If this happens, inside that we have to return false. We don't want to specify how many times we pressed or anything like that. We just want to return false because the patient is dead. Otherwise, we want to print the number of presses and the intensity and return true, which shows that the user, the particular patient is alive. So let's save this, and I'm removing this hello world, and now I'm calling this println, and inside placeholders give this function call. So this is 20 number of presses and intensity 9. So this condition, the number of presses is not less than 20 and the intensity is not less than 9. So this will not go inside this if, and it will continue, and this will print this. And similar with the case of 30 and 10. 30 is not less than 20 and intensity 10 is not less than 7. That's why it won't go inside if, and it will do this. Let's try to do the same thing with a different number this time, which is CPR of let's take 19. The poor patient may die now, so let's give intensity 8. So intensity 8 is not less than 7, but still the number of presses are 19, which is less than 20. That's why it's going to return false. So let's see that. Cargo run. See, the first time it printed true. Just a minute. There is a very big glitch there. So it pressed 20 times with 9 intensity and the patient is alive. It pressed 30 times with intensity 10, the patient is alive. And the third time with 19 presses, it returned false. So the patient is dead. So let's give this number back to 40, but the intensity is 5, which is less than 7. The poor patient will die again. So let's run this again. It's the same thing. So it returned false. So this is how return values work. If you have seen carefully, this, when we are calling the CPR function third time, it came here, it touched the return false, and it didn't execute anything after this. That is the whole point of return. Basically, if you touch anywhere return in the anywhere in the flow of the function, the function execution will stop there no matter what is there behind that. So whenever there is, when you are writing return, make sure that you are not missing any functionality after that if the return is hitting. So when the return is hit, the function will stop executing at that point no matter what is there after that. So there is another way how we can return this value, and this is only applicable if and only if we are returning at the end of the function. So instead of return true like this, we can just specify true here like this without any semicolon. So this will also return true. This is only applicable if and only if we are returning at the end of the function. If we try to run this, it shouldn't throw any error. That is because we can return like this. If we give a single value at the end of the function without any return or any semicolon, that means that that function will return that particular value. So we can return like this also. That's it for this video. Make sure you share this video in LinkedIn, Twitter, and to your friends if you find this helpful. and also like and subscribe to this channel for the future episodes of Rush series, and I'll be back with the episode 9 of Rush series. Bye.